Statistically, Alexander Isak is an outlier whether you compare him domestically against Premier League strikers or against strikers from the rest of Europe. From his non-penalty goals to his non-penalty XG to goal conversion and even his expected assists, his statistical profile looks like a hybrid between a clinical poacher and a creative wide forward. And so by the end of this video, I will have answered these 3 specific questions. First of all, just how good is Isak, both statistically and from the eye test? And does this mean that he's worth the £150 million reported price tag? Secondly, what are the 2 underrated goal-scoring traits in Isak's game that are primarily responsible for him being as prolific in front of goal as he is? And thirdly, where does he rank percentile-wise when directly compared statistically to other elite-level forwards, specifically Salah and Mbappe? Well, I'm going to break that all down step by step, but as I usually do with player analysis videos, let's begin with the objective statistical breakdown of Alexander Isak based on last season's output. So I'm going to show you 3 graphs comparing Isak with strikers from both the top 5 European leagues as well as the Premier League alone. In this first graph plotting non-penalty goals against non-penalty XG across the top 5 European leagues, Isak stands out as an outlier. His fairly big circle size does reflect a solid sample of minutes, and he consistently overperforms his XG by a sustainable margin. However, there are a few strikers positioned higher and further to the right, which I'll examine shortly to see if there are any affordable options as potential Isak alternatives. If we switch to Premier League strikers only from last season, the same graph reveals that just one player with a similar sample size of minutes is able to match Isak's non-penalty goals and non-penalty XG rate. And to be fair, you can probably already guess who that player is, but there's also a player with a smaller sample size who ranks even higher than both for those metrics, and I'll show you who that player is as well as the 2 other plot graphs in just a minute, before eye test analysing Isak using in-game footage and then comparing his circle charts with Mo Salah and Kylian Mbappe. But before I go any further, if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including the new season Manchester United releases for the upcoming season. They sent me over this new season Manchester United shirt with Bruno Fernandes on the back, as well as this 2006-2007 white Manchester United away shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, alongside this Zidane Juventus shirt from the 90s as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. So using non-penalty XG plus expected assists, a metric that reflects how good a player is at creating high value chances for themselves and others, we can see that while Isak still ranks as an outlier, there are a few players who score even higher. Yet when we narrow down the field to Premier League strikers, Isak emerges clearly as one of the most clinical finishers, as well as one of the most effective chance-creating strikers in the league. In the third graph plotting expected assists against non-penalty goals, once again Isak stands out. He ranks as an outlier for his non-penalty goals, whilst also sitting around the top 20 to 25% for his chance creation as well. Amongst Premier League strikers, it's really only Erling Haaland who's able to match Isak's goal output. But the Swedish striker's expected assist rate is significantly higher, showing how rare Isak's profile is. Now don't worry, I know you're wondering who those higher ranking players were, and I am going to revisit these graphs to show you shortly, before we compare Isak with both Salah and Mbappe. But before that, let's look at some in-game footage to try to understand why Alexander Isak is such a prolific goal scorer. So there are 2 main attributes that Isak has, which are the primary reason I think for his high goal scoring output, and they are his speed of movement and his speed of thought. Take this goal that he scored against Tottenham for example, which highlights Isak's positional awareness in attacking situations as he moves between the fullback and centre-back, instead of sitting central between both centre-backs, and this is because with Jacob Murphy positioned between the left-back and centre-back on the other side, if Isak stays on the outside of the Tottenham right-sided centre-back, he's essentially making a run from his blind side, maximising his ability to exploit the space if Murphy is played in behind. And this is exactly what happens, and we are able to see Isak's acceleration and pace over shorter and longer distances, which allows him to race ahead of the Tottenham back line, and as Murphy reaches a 1v1 position, now Isak is perfectly placed for a pass across goal, creating a high value goal scoring opportunity, which of course Isak scores. Now here against Chelsea, we once again see Isak's speed of thought and movement, as he immediately shifts inside Reece James once a pass goes into Joel Linton between the lines. He then positions himself between James and Colwill, making it difficult for either one to mark him. And when Harvey Barnes releases Lewis Hall on the overlap for a first-time cross, Isak's elite level positioning has now left him unmarked in the 6-yard box, ready to finish first time into an open net. In this example against Arsenal, Isak first collects a knockdown, but he shows composure and awareness of the situation by actually going backwards instead of forcing the attack forwards, which actually allows Newcastle to work a better goal scoring opportunity for him. As the ball is played wide to Gordon, Isak has taken up that trademark position between the two centre-backs Gabriel and Saliba, staying an equal distance between the two to make it hard for either to mark him tightly. And when Anthony Gordon delivers a perfectly weighted first-time cross, which goes over the head of Gabriel but drops just in time for Isak to meet it with a powerful header into the left corner of the net, beating David Raya with both power and placement. And these two goals against Chelsea from a counter press and Nottingham Forest from a knockdown in a 6-yard box shows how Isak's speed of thought and offensive instincts allow him to react a second or so quicker than the defenders around him, with him also excelling when it comes to getting off clinical shots quickly, even when under pressure, which allows him to get shots on goal that other strikers would either see blocked or even just get crowded out of the situation before they can actually release the shot in the first place. And Isak's ability to get clinical shots away quickly is a key reason for not just his high non-penalty XG rate, but subsequently also his high non-penalty goals rate as well. Now combine this shooting trait with his speed of thought and movement, his close ball control and quick footwork under pressure, either when receiving the ball with his back to goal outside of the box and having to link play efficiently, or when he's able to isolate a defender in and around the box in a 1v1, to then look to work a shooting angle, alongside his weight of pass when creating chances in the final third, his physicality and pace, as well as his offensive aerial ability from crossing situations, and you arguably have the most complete striker in world football. But this is where we come on to Mbappe and Salah. But just before I compare Isak to the Premier League's best player Mo Salah and Mbappe, who's arguably been the world's best player over the past 5 years, let me quickly show you who ranked above him in the earlier plot graphs. So domestically in the Premier League, Haaland just about edges Isak in non-penalty goals by 0.01 per 90, but does record a higher non-penalty XG rate by 0.10 per 90, suggesting that Haaland does have a more sustainable goal-scoring output, whilst Alexander Isak's long-range goals do manage to bridge the XG gap to non-penalty goals per 90, which of course is the primary reason for his greater XG overperformance in comparison to Erling Haaland. However, it should be said that Rodrigo Muniz does actually rank above both Isak and Haaland for both metrics, though this is likely due to him only playing 1,140 minutes last season, so this data is going to be positively skewed. But even still, based on consistent eye test impressions, he's definitely a striker that I will be watching closely next season. If I show you the plot graph from earlier on across Europe's top 5 leagues, you can see that Isak's metrics align closely with Ademola Lookman and Harry Kane. Beyond Lewandowski and Mbappe, however, most players ahead of him either have limited sample sizes or are what you would consider young and up-and-coming strikers or late bloomers without more than 1 or 2 seasons at this level. And so this leads me on to now doing a more specific and detailed statistical comparison of Mbappe and Salah against Alexander Isak. So these are what I regard as the 8 best metrics in unison to use when comparing not just strikers or centre forwards or forwards, but when comparing the best attacking players in the world in general. So let's start off by looking at what are the key similarities statistically between the 3 forwards. Well, they all rank in the top 1 or 2% for their non-penalty goals and their non-penalty XG plus expected assists, reflecting their status as forwards with highly complete skill sets, who are able to both score and create. Their goal scoring rates are also exceptional, with Isak just about edging Mo Salah by 2 percentile points for this metric. But now we come on to the key differences, and we'll start with chance creation, specifically when looking at creating chances for others. And we can see that Mo Salah dominates in terms of expected assists, sitting in the top 2%, but not just that, he's actually the leader when it comes to deep completions when compared against every other player in the top 5 leagues, showcasing statistically how Salah can function as a wide playmaker who excels at creating chances for others, as well as progressing the ball into dangerous areas in and around the box. Now Mbappe sits in the 91st percentile for his XG assisted and the top 2% for his deep completions, being probably the most direct of the 3, relying most on his pace, but also having immaculate close ball control and quick footwork that sees him record an exceptionally high dribble success rate in the 96%, Now this is where we do see the disparity between Isak and the other two, as whilst he is still ranking high for both metrics, he is ranking lower down in the 80th percentile for his expected assists and the 89th percentile for his deep completions, which could be due to the side he's playing in. Maybe if he goes to a more possession dominant side, we start to see his numbers move up to Salah and Mbappe's level. But this can also portray a stylistic difference between Isak and the other two, with Isak certainly being less involved when it comes to linking play and progressing the ball forward from the middle third during the build-up phase, and also when in settled possession. When it comes to their dribbling and their overall ability to progress the ball forward, Mbappe and Salah are once again producing higher output than Isak, with Mbappe sitting in the 96th percentile and Mo Salah the 91st percentile for their dribbles completed, whilst Alexander Isak is further down in the 71st percentile. But once again, I will say that I do think this is more of a reflection on the role that Eddie Howe has been using Alexander Isak in order to maximise his goal scoring output, rather than as a direct comparison to Mbappe and Salah's dribbling. However, the area where Salah ranks higher than Mbappe and significantly higher than Isak is when it comes to their overall progressive actions per 90, with Salah ranking in the 76th percentile and Isak all the way down in the 17th, which once again highlights Mo Salah's role in the Liverpool system as not just a goal scorer, but also a wide creator and ball progressor as well. When talking about weaknesses and areas to improve, Isak sitting in the 17th percentile for his progressive actions is obviously the glaring outlier in this statistical analysis, showing that he's definitely more of a pure goal scorer rather than a transitional or ball progressing threat in the same way that both Mo Salah and Mbappe are. Now even though it's not significant, Mbappe does have a lower goal conversion compared with Isak, which goes a long way to proving that Isak is one of the most clinical finishers in world football at the moment. Now in contrast, Mo Salah has no statistical weaknesses. His all-round game is the most balanced of the three, whilst also producing the same sort of elite level output for his non-penalty goals and his non-penalty XG. The average scores of the 8 metrics give us Isak at 80.8, an elite level finisher and chance generator, but his limited progressive actions do hold him back against the other two. Mbappe has a rating of 88.8, being an ultimate ball progressing and transitional threat despite actually being less clinical in front of goal than Isak. And Mo Salah has a rating of 94, showing that he has the most complete statistical skill set of the three. And so this can tell us that Salah is the best all-rounder, blending chance creation with goal scoring. Mbappe is the most explosive, definitely the superior dribbler and open play threat when running with the ball at his feet, whilst Isak is the purest finisher, with his game being centred less around his involvement in build-up and when linking the attack, with the role he plays in at Newcastle as an advanced kind of poacher type of striker, actually working to limit his game in order to optimise his role for goal scoring in particular, having him hold a higher position usually between the two centre-backs in order to maximise the amount of high value chances he's able to receive throughout a match. And so this brings us on to our questions from the start of the video. First of all, just how good is Alexander Isak, statistically and from the eye test, and is he worth £150 million? Well, goal scoring wise, he's definitely on the same level as Erling Haaland, as a traditional goal scoring striker, with the City man being slightly better in that area, but Isak's greater creative and ball progressing output arguably makes him a more valuable centre forward to have in your side overall. But is he worth £150 million? Well, given that Cunha and Bumo Gyökeres and Osimhen have all gone for around £60 to £65 million each, you may say that Alexander Isak isn't double the player of any of those two, and so he can't be worth more than £120 million. However, that thinking does fail to factor in that players like Vinicius would cost in excess of £115 to £120 million if he was even to leave Real Madrid this summer, that is. Cole Palmer as well. Florian Wirtz went for £100 million up to £116 million with add-ons. And so these are all examples which show that top players aren't valued linearly, and this is because of the superstar effect, which suggests that small differences in quality amongst the very best players in the world can actually lead to a massive jump in value. And so considering Florian Wirtz's valuation, I think a reasonable valuation for Isak, given that he's probably the best goal scorer and the second best player overall in the Premier League, definitely the best who could be available this summer, and is only 26 in September, I think a fair valuation would be around £125 million, plus maybe another £15 million in add-ons, potentially up to £25 million in add-ons if he was sold to a Premier League rival. Secondly, what are the two underrated goal scoring traits in Isak's game that are primarily responsible for him scoring as frequently as he does? Well, as I said previously, it's his speed of thought and movement when it comes to using his pace and positioning to get into high value shooting positions, and not just taking those chances first time under significant pressure, but also being able to finish them clinically with placement and power. And thirdly, when compared against Salah and Mbappe statistically, you can see that whilst the other two are more complete as forwards overall, offering more in terms of ball progression and creativity, Isak is not just competing with them goal scoring wise. As a pure goal scoring striker, he may be the best out of the three. So thank you for watching. If you do want to see a follow-up video analysing where Isak would fit in best in terms of the clubs that he could join, let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below. And you can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. And if you do want to sign up to my Patreon on a 7-day free trial, you will get access to the plot graphs and some of my articles. So I'll leave that linked on the end screen now as well.